You're listening to the Gender Reveal Party podcast. I'm your host, Jay Pryor. This isn't your usual gender reveal party. There will be no baby sex parts. This is the real reveal, where we reveal gender through stories of brave humans willing to share their lived experience. Enjoy the listening. I sure enjoy making it. Hey, welcome back to the Gender Reveal Party. I'm Jay Pryor, your host, and I am excited today to be with my friend, Ani Anderson. Hey, Ani.
Hey, Jay. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to the Gender Reveal Party. So, y'all, usually I bring you people who are some sort of genderqueer or something like that. We have a regular old cis woman here today.
I'm a little nervous about that.
You don't know. Don't be nervous. And as always, or not always, because sometimes they aren't my friends' friends, but Ani is a friend of mine. And I would say you're one of my girlfriends, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And that's part of the reason that I wanted to have you on the show, because we often talk a lot about gender stuff. And I know that you were impacted by my show.
Tremendously.
But I also just want the world to know you, and we have a lot to talk about, but I want to just let you have the floor for a minute and introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do and all the things.
Oh, goodness gracious. I'm the CEO of New Health. We own the Somatic Coaching Academy, which really is our baby. It's teaching people that you can help people to transform their lives by looking at your sensations. It's really how we tap into our complete intelligence. So that's what I do. I'm also a mom biologically of two, a bonus mom of one. I live in a little log cabin, literally in the woods in upstate New York. I love where I live and I love my life.
Right on. And we became girlfriends through your husband, who I met I was thinking about this because we had this interview coming up.
Yeah.
And because I think about how we met is through Brian, and Brian is, obviously still a friend of mine.
Yeah.
But I met Brian because I did a speaking contest. We did a speak off, right? And he was at this conference.
Yeah.
And I was literally walking out the door. I was leaving. I was heading out the door, and this guy stops me. And he's the most lovely human being. And what's funny about this is Brian made such an impression on me in the 5 minutes I was with him, because we were literally together for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. This guy stops me, right, and says to me, because I had just done this talk, and in the talk I say something like, back then I used to say something like, I think being a parent is the most transformational experience a human being can have. And I've had a sex change. I think that says something. Right? And Brian was like, oh, shit. That. Right. So he's like, oh, my God, being a parent is so transformational. Right. And you got me with that we all were able to be there. He was so sweet and generous and all this stuff. So I thought about him all the way home. I'm not kidding. He had made such an impression. And when I got home, I told Jessica, I said, I got stopped by this guy. Right. And he's so sweet. And she was like, what? I'm kidding, not kidding. There was a huge 3 days of conference and I learned a ton. But Brian's part of what I took away from that, right? Was that interaction with Brian.
And what he took away from you, because he came home and said that exact thing. I saw somebody on the stage and they said, and I think, when was that, Jay? Like 8 years ago.
It was 2017 because my brother just died.
Wow. Was it 2017?
Yeah.
So for us, we were in the throes of this very challenging blended family that we constantly felt like we were screwing up and constantly in some kind of conversation around. And so, what you said there, that one line made Brian feel so human. It was so powerful.
We never know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Brian and I stayed in touch, and then I met you at like one of our Real Deal or something some conference that we attended for business. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I did the show, for me, you were somebody who, you shared the impact of the show with me, but then one of the things for me, and damn it, like, sorry, I didn't think I was going to cry about this. Whew, sorry. For me, losing my dike card, right, was the trauma sometimes, like of that decision, right?
Yeah.
And never again being able to be seen as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one of the reasons that you became so important to me is even though we don't hang out, like I don't get to see you very, we don't, I
Yeah.
don't like now we've made it so we get to talk every week and that's we've
Which is great.
which is great. We check in with each other. But after the show, I felt like, and I'd love for you to speak to this, but especially after the show, I felt like you started to see me, right, as a woman.
Yes. Yeah. I met you as a man.
Right. 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 And that's how you perceived me. And
Yeah.
then that shifted and I could feel it. Right.
Yeah.
And some of my closest friends, right, still who have been my friends the whole time and been through me with the thing and live here, still perceive me as male.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
there's that male female dynamic that just is.
Yeah.
It's water we swim in. Right. And that's never, you've always treated me like a woman. Like we talk, girl talk, which whatever. I hate
Right.
that. I hate that phrase, but you know
Yeah.
what I
No,
mean.
me too. But
Um,
yeah. Right.
but so you have seen me in that, and that's very important to me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. When I met you, I perceived you as a man, and the gender reveal party was so personally impactful in so many ways. You're right, too, for how I perceived you, because you were telling my story up there. It
Oh yeah.
was, it is a like without words kind of thing. You were telling my story. You told a story about being at a funeral, and how, I think it was a funeral, and how all the women got up to like take care of the things and the men didn't. And I was like, that again, a one sentence from Jay encapsulates my entire growing up years. And I recognized that you understood me and I understood you on a level that I didn't understand we understood each other.
Yeah.
How's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. And in the show, I call it classically trained female.
Right.
Right. And that's then that I think that, I feel so grateful that that has the women who have seen my show, and the biggest impact I've had are on cis women who have seen that show, having them be like, oh, what the, yes,
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
literally trained.
Yeah. Yes. I love how you say classically trained, because I've been in this inquiry about what it means to be a woman for a solid 15 years. Okay. When I saw the gender reveal party, classically trained hit me in a different way than what it means to be a woman. All of a sudden, I took like, oh, women do this and women do that. And that's how I grew up, by watching women do this and that, to I was trained for that. It hit me on a different level that, I mean, it really has shaken up everything about my life. I think that what it means to be a woman was kind of a hobby thing that I used to do on weekends when I'd get my journal out. And now, what is my training as a woman and how that plays out? And do I like it? And do I not like it? And what does it feel like? And what do I think because of it? And all that stuff is like a moment to moment, everyday thing for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm beyond grateful for that, because I didn't realize it. And one of the things we were just talking about before we got on the recording is I still all the time have these things come up and I go, oh, that's part of it. I didn't know. My husband and I are on this, inquiry together around unraveling this, for me, for him, for us, for our kids, for all of us and all of our students and all the work that we do and all that together, as these things continue to be revealed to me through my curiosity, really, and watching myself and watching other people. Like, is that part of it? Is that part of the classically trained female? Was I taught that? Do I feel good now because I was taught that? Do I not feel good now because I was taught that? Am I doing this because I was taught that? Like, it's a constant inquiry, and I'm so grateful. It's opened so many doors.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for speaking to that. Because, one of the things for me that Jessica and I both, it's so hard to listen to the way just people generalize. Because once we were started to have heterosexual privilege and be then brought into the fold of, straight people in their conversations and, just how regular old binary people talk, there is this conversation that women do these things and men do these things. Well, that's how women are. Women drivers or women this or women that. And it used to infuriate us because, especially with me standing there undercover, right? It's like, hey, well, I wonder if you knew if I had a vulva, if you would still say that, right? Because in that moment, I'm not interested in sharing that I have a vulva, but if you knew I had a vulva, would you still? And what would happen is then I'd come out and within instantaneously they would forget and it would never register that I was actually a woman. Right. Or that there was any part of me that was female. Right. And, so it's fascinating to me. But the other thing is that I'm so blessed that you have someone like Brian, who I adore and love also, who is at least willing to start taking baby steps to see how is he classically trained male. Exactly. Because I love men who are interested in understanding that training. My brother and I were just talking about this. I have for my Patreon folks, which, hey, this is a good opportunity for me to mention Patreon because for my Patreon folks, those are the people who are going to get in on these like Zoom calls with my brother about gender, things like that, because he was talking about this the other day about how he's never thought about how he was classically trained male and things like always having people look at you for the answer. Right. And stuff like that. Because when that first happened to me, I mean, the very first time it happened, I was with 4 women. We got in a cab in Washington, D.C., and the driver was from a culture that was very binary and refused to speak to those women and only would speak to me. And I didn't know where we were going. Like,
sorry, that's hilarious.
It was hysterical. I was like, I don't know where we're going. She's the one who's going to tell. No, he was like, you are the one, man. Yeah. Right. That has the answers. So yeah, that classic training. And what you said before the call, which was, is that there are still moments, and always, I think we are unfolding them ourselves constantly. Once we have this awareness where it's like, wait a minute, I'm back in that swirl. Right. Or I'm back
I don't even know, Jay. Like, I don't even realize. I remember my husband, Brian, and I, when we were first planning our family, we used to have a terrible time at mealtime. There were things that I expected that he didn't expect or whatever. And I remember sitting there thinking, I'm wrong about what I want. Like, why can't I be more calm about this? Why does this bother me so much? Why can't I just accept things the way he does and things? And it really took me years to start to dissect. Maybe I'm not wrong. And maybe the way he's acting isn't the ideal. Like, maybe I'm okay. Maybe the fact that I have feelings is okay. Maybe the fact that I have an opinion is okay. Like, all of these things, like, it's baffling to me. And through the process, I've gained a tremendous amount of gifts. Like, one of the things that I've gotten over the past 10 years of living together really has been this incredible capacity to look at my emotional reactions and choose in a way that I didn't have 10 years ago. So I'm a big fan of looking at how we've grown and where we've grown. The whole process has been incredibly beneficial for me, whether I knew what I was doing or I didn't know what I was doing in terms of like the gender and the traditionally classically trained stuff. And then I got to a place where I was like, maybe I'm not wrong. Maybe I think he's right because I'm used to thinking that whatever the dude does is the right thing to do and that I'm the wrong one. And I started to try those things on. But it's this continual evolution that I don't recognize that I'm swimming in the sea until one day I get a whiff of the salt water and I'm like, I think that's a thing. And it's really interesting because I'll say to him, I think that's a thing. And he's like, that's not a thing. You know, the swimming in the unconscious, like totally not being conscious of it together is fascinating. And then sometimes I'm like, no, this is a thing. And he's like, yeah, it's not a thing. So there's this like sometimes we're both really unconscious to it.
Mhm.
Sometimes I recognize something or sometimes he recognizes something. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. That is interesting.
And then of course we go out in the world where everybody, all of my cisgender people who I hang out with all the time are like doing all the stuff. And then we're like, are they doing the thing?
Yeah, you can definitely, once you become aware of it, you watch other people do the thing.
Fascinating.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I'm going to have some of my friends local that are some of my cis friends that are local on to talk about this at some point. But, you know, one of the things that happens to me a lot is people make assumptions because they assume that I am then male. And so therefore, because they assume I'm a man, that first of all, I'm incapable of anything.
Really. Right. True.
You know, they give me that.
Right.
And that used to just be so fascinating, especially when we had kids, because, you know, not only am I a classically trained female, but I'm classically trained female from a huge family. So I've been around kids my whole life and been taking care of kids. I was, you know, babysitting, like I say in the show, babysitting 4 kids right off the bat. So, you know, it was always just maddening to me that we'd go out in public and people assume that I don't change a diaper, or assume that I'm, you know, and I've had to just let people just either decide again, how much energy am I going to engage?
Yeah.
Right? How much energy do I want to engage? I just had this happen the other day where I said something around tech stuff, right? And that Jessica helps me with certain tech stuff, and had this person automatically assume and say to me, yeah, you're just like every other guy where your wife, da, 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 da. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not just like every other guy. And that's a frustrating assumption that you're making about me, because my wife are very non-binary and all the things we do are fluid. So
this is really interesting, Jay, because it's one of the things that has really come up for me in my exploration about being classically trained female, this man hating, honestly, and the way that women treat women. It's been a really prominent thing that I've been thinking about, like, seriously over the past year, like intentionally, because you're speaking to it right now. I grew up with people talking about how incapable the men were and really not liking them. And by the way, the expectation that was exactly where I was headed. It's blowing my mind.
Isn't that gross?
Really, it is.
Yeah.
I had a conversation.
And we expect you to marry one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's what's happening.
Right.
That's what's happening. It was always,
so
I don't remember anybody saying to me, you're going to be in a heterosexual relationship and marry a guy and be a woman. And like, nobody ever said that to me. And I recently had a conversation with my 16-year-old daughter where I was like, I think you know this, but I just want to verbally say it to your face. You be anybody you want to be. You marry or don't marry anyone you want to. You live with whomever you want to. You have sex with whoever you want to. Like, all of those things I want to have come out of my mouth. So
absolutely, right? Yeah.
It is not an expectation that you're going to grow up, get married to a guy, and have babies and live in a house with them. Like, I have no expectations around that. Truly, truly, truly. It was the underlying thing no one ever said to me. And it wasn't until really recently that I was like, wow, no one ever said that. Somehow I drank it in the water. Like, I got that.
Well, it was what you were being trained for.
Absolutely.
I mean, you were being classically trained to grow up pump out some babies, and be
Done. I did it.
subservient to a man.
Yeah.
There you go.
Done.
Absolutely.
Did it.
Check the box.
Checked
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get
Fascinating.
it. It is fascinating. Yeah. And it was fascinating for me to observe how the world just dismisses women, right? I mean, I can have it still happens to me because I'm still perceived as male, right? So I can go stand up at a bar and get served anytime, and there'll be women sitting there, especially if they have gray hair, who have been there for a
Oh,
while, who are not going to get served at all.
huh.
So if I want to support a woman, I go stand next to an elderly woman and make sure she gets served first.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
I do that all the time
Oh, God.
because I'm at the bar. They'll come to me while I can see she's been sitting there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you? Wait on her.
Yeah.
As I always say, wait on her,
Yeah.
then wait on me. I'll probably buy her a drink because
Yeah.
you're pissing me off. I mean, happens
Right.
all the time. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So the first of all, that there is like this just dismissal of women that I see constantly. But then there's that world too, where it's like, I mean, I said this all the time. The words a woman never hears is "I'm so sorry," right? Like from wait staff, from everybody. And the minute you have man skin on, white man skin on, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, "I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry, sir. I'm so sorry, sir. We'll get that right cleaned up, whatever it is." Right.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. We'll take care of that.
Yeah. Yeah. You're hitting a chord with me because the amount of times in recent history that I've been blamed for things that are not my fault, or people haven't said sorry, or it's just like it's baffling to me, and it's a daily practice for me to remind myself in many ways that I don't have to live my life as if I have to fight for everything, because that's not, you and I know about manifestation. That's not what I want to be manifesting.
Right.
And
We don't
there
want to
are days
resist this.
when, right, there are days when and moments when I am like, I'm in a fight, like for my life. Like this is the fight. And then I've got to be like, no, that is not what I want to consciously create.
Right.
And I've had to do a ton of work on my nervous system.
Yeah.
Ton of work on my nervous system.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I might assert to just being classically trained female that women are anxious. I mean, how
Totally.
can you not
I
be
had
anxious? I
had
have
no
anxiety.
idea.
I
I had
mean,
no idea. I thought that I wasn't, but I was actually, through the course of a bunch of therapy and coaching, recognized that my nervous system was in a constant state of hypervigilance. I
absolutely.
didn't know.
How do you
I
not
didn't
be?
know.
Well, as a woman,
Constant.
I mean, I talk about this all the time. As a man, like I had to unlearn, like, oh, I don't need to have my fingers keys between my fingers. I don't need to
Right.
pay attention to everybody who's, like women. That's one of the saddest things. Trans guys, we talk about this all the time because we forget that she's walking faster. She's running away from me.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yes.
shit.
Right.
It's me.
Yeah.
Right. Damn, that's heartbreaking. I don't want it to be me, but
Yeah.
women are trained. You walk on the other side, you know
That's
who's
right.
around you. It's one of the reasons that trans people we have such issues in bathrooms, and that honestly, it is safer to go into a men's room because
Hmm.
men do not pay attention. They don't have to pay attention to who's around them. It's not a safety issue. They don't notice. They don't care. They're all just about them, whatever's going on.
That's
Women
interesting.
are trained from the time we're young that it's basically, it's your fault if you get raped. So
Totally.
you're the one who has to be vigilant and pay attention.
Yeah. Pay
So then
attention.
how can you not be vigilant?
Yeah.
And then if you've had any trauma on top of that, which I don't know the statistics, but I talk about this in the show. I was coaching women from 35 to 75, and not one of them, every one of them had a Me Too story. There was not one of them that could escape that.
Yeah.
I don't know any woman that doesn't have a Me Too story. I don't know
Yeah.
one woman.
And
One.
if you don't, then it's passed down from your parents, your mother that did, like,
But your mom did.
or your
Yeah.
sisters did, or your aunts or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's the water
It's
that's the water we swim in, which is the
everywhere.
hypervigilance. Right.
Exactly.
So here's the question, right? This we want, because you and I are both coaches. And, when you say sensory and somatic, I want to make sure people understand that a lot of what we're talking about is within the body, right? That
Yeah,
we
right.
do, but we get into the body.
Yeah.
And we're coaches. So how do we break the training, see the training, like how do we transform it from the inside out without resisting it?
Without resisting it.
Yeah, right.
Key.
Yeah.
Key. I think one of the biggest things for me in my personal journey has been reminding myself that I'm not wrong.
Mhm.
Because at every turn in whatever transformation that I'm making or goal that I'm setting or whatever, as I go along my path, that comes up all the time.
Mhm.
And it really takes a lot of conscientiousness to remind myself that I'm not wrong. It's one of the ways actually that I will pop myself out of my body. So my body can tell me what my heart really wants, what is in my soul. My body also tells me the ways in which I'm conditioned, tells me both.
Yeah.
And when you know how to navigate those things, you can begin to differentiate the difference. But being in our head all the time will just keep us out of the possibility to transform those things. So when I heard myself say I'm wrong, it just pops me right out of my body. Boing. So I need to remind myself, wait a second here. Even if I have to say, what if, there is no right or wrong, of course, that's the punchline. But what if what I was experiencing is true? And then go from a place where I actually pay attention.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That's important. I
One of
think
my
that's,
favorite one of my favorite things to do, Jay, in my work, like on a daily basis, is to maybe be the first person to tell people that women that what you're experiencing is normal. You're normal. You're fine. You're okay. You're natural.
Mhm.
This is okay. Is one of my favorite things to do. At the end of the day, when I've gotten to help a woman to really see and to take a deep breath and to understand what you're feeling is important. It's right. Whatever body symptoms are coming up, whatever things are going on in your head, it's normal, it's natural, it's okay. All of that stuff is really, really cool. That is so cool for me.
Mhm. Yeah. And for me, it's it's one of the foundational principles of coaching and giving up resistance, right? Is
Yeah.
first giving up that whatever's happening is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Yeah.
so we could even go, I can go a layer deeper there. We can for a second. And we can give up, if we could give up that the classic training is wrong,
Yeah.
right? And then if then what I'm always looking for is it, does it work or does it not work? So if
Right.
we could give up
Exactly.
whether it's right or wrong or good or bad, then we get to look from, does it work and does it not work?
Yeah.
And I try to give, for me, it's easy to make the binary wrong because there's so much to that it hurts, right?
Oh,
And
I have a great point.
so much restrictive. I have a story anyway. My story is that it's restrictive, especially for people like me, right?
Mhm.
Who don't
Yeah.
fit. Didn't fit in the binary.
Yeah.
And so it's easy for me to make it wrong.
Yeah.
And it works for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right? It
Right.
works. So, so I don't want to make it wrong, but I want to find out how we can give up. Like how can we give people the freedom to actually even see if it
Mhm.
works or not for them when you can't see it. Right. So it's like that whole
Absolutely.
world of like, how do we crack it open for them? Which is what I hope that I'm doing with the Gender Reveal Party podcast. Right? This is my whole hope. And this hope in
Yeah.
this conversation, right, is to crack it open so they can start to see some of it. And then at the same time, then allow them to have choice.
Choice. Exactly. It's those things that I didn't realize I had choice. And so many things. God, I mean, I'm a public speaker. I'm a coach. I've been a therapist. I've been a business owner. I mean, I'm like, by all rights and purposes, like a role model and authority figure kind of person. And I'm still learning on a daily basis that I have choice, especially around my voice and what I say.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's baffling to me. It's astounding. Like, wow. It doesn't occur to me sometimes to either speak up or to have a boundary or to have an opinion or to say something or whatever.
Yeah. 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 And I think that that's, but and the thing I want to acknowledge you for, and what we want to do, right, is always celebrate the awareness. Is every
Yeah,
time you have that awareness, you have that, you celebrate that awareness, that then it's another, you're starting to flex that muscle by breaking out of that training.
absolutely. And getting to the place where, like you just said, you can say, is this working for you?
Right.
There are things that I classically trained female do every day that are working for me really good that I'm going to
Right.
keep up. And
Right.
maybe, next week they won't be, and we'll have a
Mhm.
conversation about that. And that's an option. I know now.
Yeah.
I have this I was with my ex-husband and I was doing the dishes. And I put the babies to bed and I was doing the dishes at like 10:30 at night and I was exhausted. And he was on his computer and he had been while I was putting the babies to bed, while I was doing the dishes. And I was so frustrated. And I said something about, you could have done the dishes while I was putting the babies to bed. And he said, you didn't ask me to. And I was like, there, am I wrong? Should I not have asked? Like all of this stuff, right? Like this was like 15 years ago to whatever, 12 years ago. And I remember after I changed my relationship, I was at the sink doing the dishes and I was feeling resentful. And Brian at the time was probably on the computer or something. And I stopped and I just walked away from the sink and I was like, I have a choice to do the dishes or not. And it didn't occur to me that first time that memory happened. The second time it did. And I decided to stop doing the damn dishes for a while, right? Like I was like, oh, I'm not going to do it anymore. And now I'm to the point where we flex and I can ask, or I don't have to ask, or I expect other people to step up, or I don't. Like it all becomes like this kind of non-issue thing that we just kind of flex around. It was a big, big, big deal. It was such a turning point, each of those memories for me in terms of
Mhm.
doing the dishes.
Yeah.
And there are so many dishes.
Right. Right. And we were just talking about that earlier, like the dance that, a lot of times when I have a client, especially a cisgender heterosexual client that has had a pattern of like whatever this dance is in relationships, right? And that has to do with all
Yeah.
these things. Like, when they both can get that they're both dancing,
Yeah.
right? That there is this, like, this classic, he's classically trained not to ask and not to
Yeah.
intervene, right?
Yeah.
And we've even got men classically, like you said, to make men wrong and to think they're dumb and can't do
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
then, I had women tell me flat out, like, I'd rather just do it myself. Right.
Yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
Right. So that whole
Hell
world of
yeah.
like, and then guys will tell me, well, if I try to do it, I'll be told I'm doing it wrong. So I'm just not going to do that.
Exactly.
That's a whole big dance.
What a trap.
But it, and it's a dance that we do. So we have to like everybody come to the dance or to come to the knowing that we're doing the dance and
Yeah.
the willingness to stop and say, do we still want to do this dance or do a different
Yeah.
dance, take a different step
I,
in the dance?
yeah. I like the idea around a dance because it takes some of the kind of emotionality down a notch. And it also really has this idea of like when you're dancing, if I step forward, you step back. If I step
Right.
back, you step forward. And
Right.
there's in my perception from my life experience, it's difficult with the men in my life to see that we're dancing in that if I step back, they step forward. They see me stepping back and they're like, I was just standing here. So, so takes two to tango. Like, uh, and that's frustrating for someone who, I mean, most of the men in some of the men in my life really take to heart their own work for sure. They really, really do. And some don't,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And even for for the men in my life who do really take it to heart to do their own work, so challenging. I'm even moving my body as I'm saying, like this idea about dance, to dance with being in a place where I'm coming to my own awarenesses, but not feeling like I've got to force you to see what I'm seeing,
Right.
or to force you to have an awareness so that I can be free.
Right.
I think that's for me really recently, Jay, over the course of like the past year is a new place that I am where I feel like I can be free, even no, no matter what you're doing. And that's a really new place for me. I used to
Yeah,
be in the
that's
place
huge.
where I felt like I was only free if you understood or if you
Right.
were on board or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
But to feel like I can be free because I'm free, and then maybe you'll come around to sing, maybe you won't. It's like,
Yeah.
holy crap, that right there. So I'm so grateful for that
Yeah.
awareness or
Yeah.
that ability way of being in
Hmm.
relationship with men in my life.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. And and I love that piece where it's like I mean, it's where I'm getting to with this whole new level of self-compassion that I have, where it's like the noise about my body, the noise about there's so much that quiets when I am at choice, when I am free, no matter what
Yeah.
anybody else is doing, no matter
Yeah.
what the scale says, no matter what my bank account says, no matter what my child is doing.
Yeah.
Like when I'm in that, when I'm in that, I can get there. I mean, that's a sweet spot.
It is. And it's, I think what's what we're all looking for, isn't it? Is this inner peace. I mean, 25 years ago when I started meditating, that's what I thought I was going for, was I was finally
Right.
going to get to that feeling.
Right.
And yeah. So my meditation instructor, after about 5 years, she's like, no, the point of meditation is to listen to and watch the voices in your head. And I was like, why the hell did I waste 5 years? It's a joke. But what I was really looking for was this sense of inner peace that
Yeah.
is something that I can taste as I work on my conditioning, as I work on my patterns and how I
Right.
was trained.
Yeah.
Coming full circle on those things really brings that feeling that I think so many of us are truly, really looking for.
Yeah. 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 Boy, I appreciate you.
Love you too.
I should mention that we have a sponsor. 'Cause
That's a good idea.
I always get into these conversations. And I'm really grateful for our sponsor, Fire and Bliss. I don't know if you've been to fireandbliss.com, but if you haven't, you should go. Fireandbliss.com is a place where they have artists and art collections from Black and Indigenous people of color and all the queers, and the artists actually get the money that you pay for the art. So I have curated a collection there you can go look at. And if you use the coupon reveal, when you check out, you get 20% off your first purchase. So we appreciate them so much and appreciate an opportunity to actually know where to go and buy art, where we can get it
Right?
from people who are getting the money for their art, and they're
Exactly. And the
queer
artist.
artists, and they're exactly the artists we want to
Yeah,
see. So yeah, it's
that's
pretty cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So can you tell people where to find you? Because I know you have lots of things in the world you're doing and lots to share with the world, and I want them to know you. So
Yeah, I think the best place to go is to somaticcoachingacademy.com. That is our big brand new baby. It's an evolved brand for us in a way that people can learn about how to work with their sensations to heal and transform patterns in their lives.
all the patterns, even the one you're classically trained for. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And even as practitioners, right, Jay? I mean, I think that's so important to me
Mhm.
that as coaches, as therapists, as people who do this work professionally, we're
Yeah.
constantly in the, uh, walking the talk and all of that stuff. Like we actually really do this. I think that
100%. I
I
have to
think
do it. Good
we have
Lord.
to, and
Yes.
yeah, good Lord is right. And I think it's such a wonderful thing as a professional to be really in it
Mhm.
with the people who were helping to hold their hands for them in their own life transformations. Like it's like
Mhm.
we're all in this together. It to me, it's this real practical sense of oneness that we talk about.
Mhm.
Um, that just makes me smile on a daily basis. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's this amazing thing happening where I have, I mean, I've got a million plates I'm spinning like usual, but not doing anything I don't love. And part of that is this whole new level of authenticity for myself because I'm practicing this unbelievable level of self-compassion and love that I've never experienced before. And I think a lot of that has to do with gender in the sense that going off the testosterone has me back to feeling like a new version of my old self.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It so does.
Yeah.
It so does. Yeah. I mean, I love every story you tell. And it's so interesting, right? Because when we get some space from who we are in different capacities and we see, then we have more information, I think,
Mm-hmm.
through contrast or whatever.
Yeah.
I love hearing about how much you love your body and yourself and your life and your relationships and things, especially now that you're off testosterone. It's such a, oh, it's just so lovely and delicious.
I will tell you, like most women, I'm a little frustrated right now because I have been in my perimenopausal year. Like, you have to go a year.
Yeah.
God damn it. I'm so mad. Did I tell you this that I started my period yesterday?
No.
Fuck. In May, it would have been a year.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding you. In May, people, I would have gone a year and I would have been in full on menopause.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the deal in case people don't understand. Like when a woman, when the period stops, the deal is you go period free for an entire year. And that means you're officially in menopause, like it's done. So I went 9 full months. And then I'm like sliding into home base.
Right?
I'm like, yes, I'm coming around the corner. And
no.
on Valentine's Day.
On Valentine's Day?
Yeah, it was a red Valentine.
That's hilarious.
Lovely. Isn't that awesome? Yeah.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, frack.
More of an opportunity to love your body.
I know, right? and another reason why, again, it's so important to have friends like you. And I have just a few other girlfriends that I can really like I can share this stuff with because men don't get this.
No.
Men don't have a clue what this is like.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't talk to guys about this. I even, when I was a dude, would try to have conversations with men about things like that. And they're just like, gross. Oh, I don't.
Would you really?
Oh God, I always tried to have just real conversations with men all the time until I stopped. So yeah. I mean, there's a few, right. I have a few really good friends, men friends.
Yeah.
But the most of them are not trained for that.
Yeah.
They're not trained.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. They're trained to very early on to be like, ooh,
yeah,
girl stuff. Don't talk to me about that.
Right.
Or whatever it is. Because I've always been fascinated by the body change, the shift from female to male body and how we're all and what changed for me emotionally. And, I'll have those conversations with anybody who wants to talk about it.
It is fascinating. I think the body's fascinating in general. I've always been so fascinated. I think it's beautiful and amazing. And I have my own body stuff too that comes up from time to time. If I can remember to look at myself like I would anybody else, fat bodies are so amazing. I've loved listening to your journey because it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Physiology, so cool.
Yeah. And I've even got that, what I came to in the last year with this new journey that I've had around self-love and self-compassion is the size is a very interesting thing around perception of size. And then also actual size. Like, so when I was a small person my whole life. I was 4'11" my freshman year of high school.
Were you really?
Yeah. I was a tiny person. Yeah. And not in my world, right? I've never been.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have a kid now who's 12 and who I kept and I wish I'd have kept more of it, but only thing I kept from the military is I have one hat and I have 2 what they call BDU shirts, but they're kind of jackety,
Uh-huh.
but in the Army, they're battle dress uniforms. They're shirts, and they button down. They have my name Pryor here on the pocket, right? And
Yeah.
so I gave them to my kids. So each one of my kids has a jacket that says Pryor, and they fit them.
Wow, really?
They're 12.
Yeah, wow.
I was 18.
Yeah.
Right. I not ever was that small in my mind.
Right. Right. That's fascinating.
Right.
Just how humans develop, right? Like Brian stopped growing. I think he said in like the 4th or 5th grade. We're each 5'4", so he reached 5'4", and but I was also 4'11" until I was 15 or something like that.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. And then I grew one summer like a boy. I grew in 4 inches between my freshman and sophomore year. I grew for like 5 inches. I got size C tits and hips.
Isn't that wow? Huh?
Mhm. Yeah.
Wow, you were in middle of high school?
It was the year between my freshman and sophomore year.
Interesting. Huh? Yeah.
Mhm. Was.
Yeah.
And it sucked
Yeah.
for
yeah,
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a picture of that kid. Actually, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see this? No, I had to put up the Ooh,
I can. Oh,
there you
it
go.
popped in and out.
It did, didn't it? There you go. That's
Yeah.
me.
From
That's me at
high
like
school.
15. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The kid I hated the most. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
keep it and send it love now.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a good practice.
Yeah. I'll bet.
So.
I have to remind my kids, I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. Like, this is hard times. I don't know anybody else. I don't know anybody who would say, oh, send me back to 8th grade, send me back to sophomore year. Or like, you don't hear adults. It's hard times.
Yeah. Nobody wants to go back
Keep
there.
on going,
Keep on
kiddos.
going. Yeah.
Keep on going.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, thanks for being on my show. I appreciate so much you coming on. Is there anything last things you'd like to share with our audience?
I think that for no matter how you were conditioned, I think it's such a remarkable thing for each of us to decide that we're going to look at our conditioning. It's really the right word is escaping me, like valiant kind of thing. Like it's you don't have to,
Mm-mm.
you don't have to, you choose to, and it's really remarkable. And it's the thing I think that does help us to taste rather than achieve, right? Like taste and enjoy these states that we really wish when we really do look at our conditioning. And I think, people like yourself, Jay, allow us to get a different perspective, and getting different perspectives allows us to see different aspects of ourselves that we wouldn't, so I appreciate you in being able to see those different aspects of me that without our relationship I wouldn't be able to see.
Well, I appreciate you being in my life.
Thank you.
So give my love to the family and Brian.
Will do.
All right. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Gender Reveal Party podcast. I hope you loved it. And if you did, would you take a second and go do all the things like subscribe, rate, review, tell all your friends? Apparently, if you do that, the podcast platforms are more likely to share it. And if you think these stories are important, please take 3 minutes to just go do that. I'd really appreciate it. Also, I'd love to connect with you on social. On Instagram and Facebook, I'm at the Gender Reveal Party. And on Twitter, I'm at Pryor J. It's a real joy and privilege to bring you this podcast. Come back soon. Love you. Bye.